At the dawn of the 20th century, another war between the great powers was much talked about. Yet the nature of a European war, as opposed to a colonial venture, was little understood. What was known was the nature of the many swift forays by superior forces against distant, feeble foes. Machine guns against spears and massive firepower against antique guns meant quick, easy victory. However frightening those conflicts could be for those who took part in them, the politicians at home had little sense of the horror of these new weapons. Why should war in Europe be feared? In 1900, war was a gay, droll affair. Within 4 years, a century of the worst military slaughter in history would begin. In 1914, before the Battle of the Marne, Verdun stood like a rock against repeated German assaults. If it had fallen, Paris, even the war, might have been lost. It was the hinge of the whole Allied line. At first glance, Verdun's defenses looked formidable. Almost completely encircled by ridges and hills on both banks of the Meuse River, Verdun was protected by a ring of forts, 20 large and 40 small ones. The strongest cornerstone of them all was Fort Douaumont, perched on a 1,200-foot height northeast of the city, on the right bank. However, the strength of the forts was illusory. Many of the guns had been removed by the French General Headquarters to provide extra firepower for the autumn offensives the previous year. By 1916, over 200 guns had been removed. On 8 December, Falkenhayn revealed his plans to Generals Toppen and Wild about an attack on the forts at Verdun. 140,000 infantrymen were assembled to make the attack. Whole villages were evacuated to make room for them. The German commanders secretly massed over 1,230 artillery pieces behind the front. Siege guns, naval guns, quick-firing guns, field guns, and mine throwers. These were the guns that were to do the bleeding white. To supply this fearsome army, the Quartermaster General of the Imperial General Staff assembled 1,300 munitions trains. In an endless stream, they transported 2.5 million shells. With utmost secrecy, the buildup continued day and night. With every tick of the clock, time was running out for the poorly prepared and outmanned French. German troops continued to pour into their forward trenches, the starting point for the grand offenses. By the thousands they came, the best troops in the German army, veterans hardened by 2 years of trench warfare. The battle opened at dawn on 21 February. 21 miles behind the German lines, a single Krupp's 38mm naval gun fired the first round at a bridge spanning the Meuse. This shell missed its target, but it was the signal for the massed German artillery to unleash an unprecedented 9-hour bombardment. 1 heavy battery for every yard of trench. 1,000 guns in all. With their rearward communications severed, the bewildered defenders were in no condition to repel a major assault. The order came, over the top. The advance elements of the German army had 8 miles to go. through a lunar landscape crisscrossed by barbed wire and dotted with concrete fortifications. On they came. Fortunately for the French, the German planners had been too cautious. They had given strict orders limiting infantry operations on the first day to strong fighting patrols, which would employ infiltration tactics to seek out weak spots in the French line. In less than 2 hours, much of the French front line had crumbled, but the Germans were also suffering heavy losses, especially among the elite storm troops, losses they could ill afford. The next day, the Germans came up against an intermediate line that had only recently been created, and so was not marked on any German map. The dogged defense of Herbebois by the French 51st Division was finally over by late that evening, but overall German advances were less than expected. Ominously for the Germans, powerful French artillery was massing on the left bank of the Meuse. Before dawn the next day, Samogneux was in German hands. The 51st and 72nd Divisions were so badly mauled that they were on the verge of total collapse. Fort Beaumont fell in less than 3 hours. The second French line of defense fell apart. For the first time on the Western Front since 1914, German commanders sensed a breakthrough. Few trenches faced them. Not much barbed wire. Open country ahead. And 10,000 French soldiers had given up the fight. The Kaiser himself came up to the front to watch the kill. By nightfall on February 24th, only the forts and a few brave men barred the Germans' way. The pivotal point in the defense of Verdun, Fort Douaumont, was now uncovered. On 25 February, the men of the elite 24th Brandenburg Regiment entered a gap left by the retreating 3rd Zouaves. They had no orders to capture Fort Douaumont. Their objective lay short of the fort, but their regimental motto was, "Do more than your duty." In small groups, they pushed beyond the stipulated objectives as far as Fort Douaumont. Emboldened by the curious inactivity of the fort, a few pioneers under a sergeant named Kunze pressed through the outer defenses to the dry moat. Still undetected, they climbed through a gun embrasure into one of the fort's galleries. Inside the fort, the garrison numbered less than 60 overaged and undertrained territorial reservists commanded by a sergeant major. A handful of men were manning the guns. Though German 42-centimeter shells had not inflicted critical damage on the fort, the shockwaves and fumes they produced had driven the majority of the defenders to shelter in the bowels of the concrete bastion. Kunze was followed in by 3 other assault teams. Without a fight, the defenders of Fort Douaumont, the world's most powerful fortification, surrendered. The capture of such a prize at minimal cost sparked national rejoicing in Germany. The Crown Prince himself decorated the brave Brandenburgers. The attackers appeared to have cleared a route into Verdun only 5 miles away. In Verdun itself, confusion reigned. Whispers were exchanged. The city is lost. The commander of the French Central Army Group, de Langle de Carie, advocated the immediate withdrawal of all remaining French forces to the heights to the east and southeast of the fortress city. However, the combative de Castelnau at French General Headquarters opposed this withdrawal, having ensured that General Henri-Philippe Pétain's Second Army would be brought out of reserve to hold the left bank of the Meuse. He also called for Pétain's area of responsibility to embrace the right bank of the Meuse, which was to be defended at all costs.